We're going to be talking about him, I feel like, every episode until he comes up to the majors.
Yes, sir, there she goes.
Hello and welcome to episode 118 of Section 138. I'm your host, Mark Colley, as always, joined by Bryson and Jacob. How are you guys?
I'm doing okay, Mark. Not the best weekend in Houston, but the Jays take 1 out of 3, so I'm feeling okay. And obviously, we all know the elephant in the room that we'll address in a bit. But yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, they split that series in Oakland, which was, I think, by most accounts, a very good series because, of course, they lose the first two, but it's against a team with one of the best records in baseball. They're very hot right now. They split it. That's acceptable, but then they go to Houston. Couple problems with that series, which we'll talk about. It was very hard to watch at a lot of points. But how are you, Jacob?
Yeah, I'll echo what you guys just said. It was a rough week for the Blue Jays. I think they were 3-4 this week, so I mean it's not terrible, but there were a lot of things behind the scenes going on that's much of a cause for concern. So this team is treading, but we'll see if that is at any point sustainable.
Yeah, it's injuries, injuries, injuries. I think that's going to be the theme of today's pod. And I mean, you look at the guys. I don't know why. Every week I'm surprised by the guys that we're talking about being injured, and I shouldn't be at this point because we know, like a week from today when we talk, or I guess we're changing our schedule a little bit for everyone listening. We'll be doing series to series podcast, but next time we talk, I just know there's going to be two or three more guys on the injured list, two or three more guys that we're paying attention to in terms of injuries. But I'm still surprised every time we come back and somehow the Blue Jays add more and more people to that list. This week they add Joe Panic to the 10-day IL, David Phelps, Rafael Dolis, and George Springer going back on the injured list after coming back for a few games, having a couple amazing games, and then back on the injured list with a quad strain, probably going to be more than 10 days for him. Also, Alejandro Kirk being moved to the 60-day IL. He'll be eligible to return early July. So that's a bit of a blow, not so much of a big deal now that Danny Jansen is hitting. But I want to start off by asking you guys a question. For me, I'm trying to separate two things. I'm trying to separate my level of frustration with the Blue Jays and my level of concern with the Blue Jays. Because obviously, right now, I am incredibly frustrated. Like it's beyond the ridiculous. It's like a cruel joke is being played on the Blue Jays by the baseball gods. They lead baseball in injured list assignments. They lead baseball in transactions on the 26-man roster. They're top five, top six in games missed to the injured list. And it seems like every single day there's another thing happening. And it seems like a cruel joke. And obviously, there's tons of frustrations among fans. I think we're catching up to it in the fact that look, I think something is wrong with the training staff. I think something is wrong with the high performance department. I don't think, like, at some point it stops being just bad luck. It stops being just bad luck. Yes, a lot of teams are injured right now. Yes, you look at, I don't know, the Padres, the Brewers, lots of teams have injuries right now. And I don't know, I'm sure people playing fantasy baseball know it seems like every other day someone's going day to day or on the 10-day IL. But at some point, something has to give. The Blue Jays are more injured than the average team, and I think there's a reason there somehow. I don't know why. I don't know if it actually is a training staff, but I'm very, very frustrated with this team right now. That's the frustration side of things. I'm trying to separate that from the concerns with the Blue Jays because I think it's important to separate those two things. While I am very frustrated, I'm not incredibly concerned about this team. It's hard to watch. It's frustrating to watch, but I think the injuries that they have don't set back their aim of making it to the postseason this year. I still think that's a very capable goal. It's very possible for this team to do. You know, they're above 500 right now, one game above. It's, you know, heading into the second week of May, but I still think it's very possible for this team to heat up. They get players healthy. They should be able to do what they want to do, which is make it to the postseason. So, yes, I'm very frustrated, but I'm not too concerned. Where do you guys stand on those two issues? Where's your level of frustration with this team? And then where's your level of concern with the injuries we've seen?
Well, see, I don't think we can necessarily be overly concerned with the team in terms of how they've been performing because, as you said, they're over 500. And they split a series with one of the best teams in baseball. I'll still say the Astros are a good team, and they did lose to them. They there were some issues there, but they got beat by the Astros. And I think what we need to look at is the fact that this team is just it's getting by with what it has available to them. Now, in terms of the injuries, I am extremely concerned. And Mark, you pointed it out. I've seen quite a few people on Instagram, on Twitter, even on Facebook. There's a few groups that I keep getting advertisements for, and everybody is starting to say, hey, what's up with the trainers? So how does everybody, or at least most of the bullpen, how does somebody seem to get injured every single day? And I'll read right here. Since the start of May, the Blue Jays have lost 5 of their relievers. They lost Tommy Malone. He's now on the 10-day IL. Julian Merriweather was transferred to the 60-day IL. George Springer, as you mentioned, is on the 10-day IL again. David Phelps is on the 10-day IL. Joe Panik's on the 10-day IL. Kirk was unfortunately moved to the 60-day. Anthony Castro and Rafael Delis all on the 10-day IL. And this, I don't really, I don't think the Blue Jays would go out and say that, this is, our trainers have not been doing their job. Obviously, I think that would stay with in-house, but as a fan, how do you not get frustrated? You're seeing this team that's supposed to be so good. And, I'll go back to what I said in January there. I want them to be on the World Series this year. And they can't be in the World Series. I don't even think that they're going to be overly, I mean, I like the team and I want them to do well, but I don't know how well they can be when so many of their key guys are injured. And I think we have to take that into consideration, which is why, like we both said, we're not overly frustrated with the players on the field, because realistically, the guys that are on the field, they're missing so many of the guys that should be on the field. So I'm more concerned of, trying to find an underlying cause for all these injuries, because as we've said, it seems everybody keeps to, or people keep going on the injured list every other day, and it's just it's ridiculously concerning. And I don't know how sustainable it is. We talk about how the starting rotation is not taking enough innings, and then the bullpen's having to take more innings, and now the bullpen is obviously it's severely depleted. Thankfully, they're getting starting pitching back, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a bit, and the concerns we have there. But this team is it's frustrating me to see how many guys keep going down, because I know this team is going to be really good. And the offense has, it's been shaky at times, but it's overall been good enough to give the team a chance. And the team's had chances to win, I think, every game that they've been in, or at least most of them. But there's just been way too many things plaguing them, to the point where it's almost as if there's one of those weighted balls just on the plane or somewhere holding the team back, saying we're supposed to be, 3, 4, 5 games over 500, but there's that thing that's just holding us back. And that is, I think, just the worst thing, is this team has the potential to be so good, yet there's just so many aspects of them that are just not working. And there's so many guys that are unavailable for them right now.
It's tough for me to say anything. I mean, you guys have summed it up. It's just, yeah, like at this point, like I'm getting beyond, like, of course I'm frustrated, but I'm getting to the point now. I'm just like, I find it funny. Like every player that touches the mound, no matter where it is, Houston, like it doesn't matter where they are, somebody's coming out. If it's every game or every other game, someone's coming out with an injury. And it's insane. I mean, Jacob, you listed the entire injury list. And of course, ever since we recorded, George Springer's been back there. And I think I kind of jinxed things, because I remember talking about Kirk and saying how it was going to be short term and everything. He's been been transferred to the 60-day IL, and Reese McGuire's already been recalled to the team. So it's not good. David Phelps getting hurt in warmup, Rafael Delis, like this bullpen is severely depleted. And the concern for me remains the same, is that this bullpen right now, due to the workload and all these arms they're going through, and the fact that these guys are going down with injuries, I'm concerned whenever or how much longer this thing can hold, because the starting pitching hasn't relatively been great hasn't been great over the past 7 days. The pitchers aren't going deep into games. And right now that's something that they need. And that's something that can still be done. But over the course of the last 7 days, first of all, the Jays were still, or now, or at least for the time being, are back to a 5-man rotation. For the longest time, for the past 2 weeks, they've been down to 2 men, 3 men, 4 men. And now they finally have 5 people penciled in. Obviously it's subject to change maybe, but either way, that's, I guess, somewhat appealing. But now we need them to go deep into games, because, just looking at this bullpen alone, Rafael Delis, who just went on the 10-day injured list, he's already appeared in 15 games. Tim Meza, 13, Ryan Barucki, 13. A lot of these guys are over 10 games already. And the Jays are 17 and 16. I believe that's what they are, currently 4th in the AL East, 4 games back. So realistically, from the standings wise, they're obviously still in it. Obviously a little early to judge off that, but at least they're still in it. And of course, I mean, right now, when you look at it, the hitting's starting to get better. And right now, I think it's the hitting, or sorry, not the hitting, the injuries that are holding them back. And I think that sums it up perfectly. What's going on behind the scenes with nutrition, with the training staff? I don't know. Mark, I know you think something's wrong. I guess something's got to be done to change things. Obviously, the rate that they're going at right now, the entire bullpen's going to get injured. Like it's insane. And each week we keep talking about, okay, there's no way this maintains. There's no way. Hopefully next week more guys are coming back, and we're either in the same boat or we are at a worse spot. So for now, the Jays, I guess, have some depth. They're still testing the depth. A lot of the depth in the bullpen still being tested. AJ Cole was just added to the bullpen, and I believe they revealed it a couple days ago that he actually had a clause coming up in his contract. If he wasn't added to the bullpen, he would have elected free agency or something like that. So he would have been coming up regardless. But that's a fresh arm, I guess. He was good for the Jays last year. You just hope that he's not overworked now. Anthony Kay has recently moved to the bullpen with the return of Nate Pearson for the time being. So, and then of course everybody else pretty much remains the same, minus Delise, Phelps, which were two pretty big parts of this bullpen. But yeah, it's just over the past week they split a series in Oakland, winning the final 2 games out of 4. I think that was somewhat good heading into the series against Houston. I would have rather that rather than lose or winning the first 2 and losing the final 2. So it felt like it was a bit of a good momentum shifter and heading into Houston. And of course, just on paper too, I didn't have the best feeling about this series, but taking 1 out of 3 was fine with me. But unfortunately, it's just that Sunday game yesterday as well. I thought they definitely had a chance to win that, but just from the get-go, and we're going to talk about it in a bit, obviously, with Nate Pearson, but yeah, it was just a frustrating weekend overall. And then the fact that you're adding injuries to this, it just makes it even worse. This team has lots of time, of course, and I'm sure they will figure things out. I mean, I don't know how much longer we're going to keep saying this, and then unfortunately nothing's happening. If anything, it's getting worse. So I don't know. I have no more words to describe the injuries at this point. It's a next man up mentality. And if I'm Charlie Montoyo, Pete Walker, even Ross Atkins, all the transactions that this team is doing, it's definitely a head scratcher. It's definitely not a position I'd want to be in. It's all the adjustments they have to make, all the planning, all of the, I guess, everyone holding their breath now to hopefully nobody else goes down. It's a lot of movement right now in terms of their strategic process. Transactions, like I mentioned, they're probably up there in terms of top 3 in terms of overall transactions. They definitely are. That's not even a question.
They've got 8 going into yesterday's game. This was before the Nate Pearson move, but they were at 82 transactions, which was first in baseball, and that's about 2 a day. So,
and it's May 10th. It's May
yeah.
10th. So there, I mean, I think that sums it up perfectly. It's just overall, it's just, especially too with the hitting, like the hitting's gotten better. Like lots of guys are starting to hit. Danny Jansen, first of all, 3 home runs, 4 RBIs in the last 7 days. Somebody who has taken advantage of the absence of Alejandro Kirk and is getting to play more. Just now we're mentioning to him, and of course other people like Marcus Semien, Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, Brando Grichuk, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. All these guys are starting to piece or gel together and all starting to hit at the same time. We discussed this last week as well. They're starting to figure things out, and now the injuries are slowing this team down. I think overall the pitching. There's only so much you can say with the amount of injuries they have. So that's what's frustrating me, is that the fact that it's now injuries that are slowing this team down. But I don't know. I mean, the 3-game series, today's an off day. Thank God for the bullpen to, I guess, rest. I think they have another off day after the Atlanta game, or maybe not, but either way, they have one today on Monday. And you just hope that nothing else happens in Atlanta. But unfortunately, none of us know the answer to that, or at least we kind of do. We just are afraid of it.
Yeah, it just seems like even with offensive production ramping up a little bit, like you got Marcus Semien starting to hit, you got Danny Jansen coming out and hitting home runs in 3 consecutive games. Like people are starting to hit, but it just seems like with every additional player heating up on the offensive side of things, you have an additional player going on the injured list. It's like you just can't get ahead if you're the Blue Jays, and I think that's why they're stuck at 500. And you look at the amount of pressure that's been put on the bullpen. I know we've been talking about this week in and week out, and it hasn't bit the Blue Jays really at all yet. Kind of bit them yesterday. I think the bullpen gave up 3 runs or 4 runs in relief, but it's going to catch up eventually. This is a 162 game season. It's a 6-month slog, and eventually it's going to catch up for the Blue Jays if they're putting this amount of stress on the bullpen for this amount of time. And I mean, even AJ Cole coming up, his first appearance in relief, he goes 2 innings. Like, that's something that can't be done every day. You have to have the rotation pitch more than the bullpen. And so far, for the Blue Jays, the only team in baseball that pretty much hasn't been the case. So something's got to give. And we were hoping that Nate Pearson coming off the injured list, that would help supplement the rotation a little bit. Ross Stripling coming back a couple weeks ago. We were hoping these moves would help improve the rotation. Yesterday against the Astros in the series finale didn't work out that way. Nate Pearson only pitching 2.1 innings. He walked 5 batters, really seemed to have no idea where the ball was going. Maurice McGuire behind the plate, he was just setting up right in the heart of the plate, saying, throw it here, your fastball. We need to find location with your fastball, then we can work on the off-speed pitches. He never found the location with his fastball. He lost one ball. I think it was an off-speed pitch, but almost hit someone in the head with it. It was pretty ugly yesterday. It was pretty hard to watch and brutal to watch for Blue Jay fans. Not what people were hoping for. People thought Pearson would be that light at the end of the tunnel. I personally thought he was going to help this team a lot, but he just hasn't.
Yeah, Pearson, it was extremely concerning. Now, the one thing I will say, his fastball command was awful. It was Reese McGuire. I wanted to say the one criticism I have, and it's just kind of maybe what I personally would have done differently, is I would have maybe gone up to the mound, have a few mound visits, but the team is only limited or is limited, so there's only so much you can do. But good on him. He did the best he could do. I think the problem with Pearson was that it was his fastball. His breaking pitches, as you said, I thought they were good. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. Problem is they weren't. He wasn't, or Pearson wasn't able to throw them in the right situations because if your fastball, excuse me, if your fastball command is not there, there's only so much that a breaking ball can do. Because if you're not going to swing at a fastball that's out of the zone, what's the point of swinging at a breaking ball? And I looked at Nate Pearson's line in the outing he had yesterday. 64 pitches, only 28 strikes. So 44% of his pitches were strikes, and that's not very good. And especially considering he struck out what 8 with Buffalo. I thought we all expected a lot better command, and with him, it was not there. And his fastball is his bread and butter. He's going to be a starter that relies on blowing the ball past guys, and he was not able to do that. Bullpen had to take out a lot of innings. You see Anthony Kay come in. I think he threw over 2 innings. It's just the starting rotation. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. It needs, now that the pieces are here, it needs to throw quality innings and just a quantity of innings. And we did not see that with Pearson. I do think he'll rebound. I mean, obviously he's the top 10 prospect in all of baseball for a reason, but this was, it was not what the Blue Jays wanted. At least they have an off day. There's a bit of a break for the bullpen there, but the starting rotation, it's going to need to rebound and it's going to need to be a lot better towards the end of it. The first 3 guys I think are good. Steven Matz has been a little rough the last couple games, but he looked better in the Houston series. But the bullpen cannot recover and it cannot bail out bad starting pitching, and that's I think the biggest concern, especially considering now we have guys back. They need to, like I said, throw quality innings, but also quantity of innings because there's only so many innings that a bullpen can cover before eventually it burns out.
Yeah, on Pearson's fastball and command, like when he's missing, when he's getting behind in counts, the Astros hitters could just sit on the fastball because they know, like he threw at one point, I think his first inning, he only threw like 1 or 2 off speed pitches because he couldn't locate the fastball. He had to go back to it and locate it. So when you get behind in counts, you're not throwing off speed pitches, you're relying on the fastball. The Astro hitters could wait for the fastball even when it was in the zone. They knew it was coming so they could hit it. So yeah, there were a
Even
lot of
without
problems
trash
with that.
cans.
Yeah, they didn't have to know the signs to know that he was throwing fastballs. So a lot of problems with his command, but yeah, I think he'll bounce back.
Yeah, and even going back to what we discussed last week, I don't know what the plan was. Let's say Rafael DeLeese or David Phelps stay healthy. Would Nate Pearson be up by now? I don't know, because I think there's a chance that he could have at least started 1 or 2 more times in Buffalo or with Trenton. But either way, I think, well, for me too, I think I said 1 or 2 starts and he'd be back. So I don't know if it was maybe rushed, but either way, Nate Pearson was eventually coming back to this rotation. And yeah, it didn't go as planned. You guys were mentioning the command issues he had. And even going back to yesterday, I know it's a small sample size, but his walk percentage was 31%. And those are over the course of 2.1 innings, like you mentioned. And even yesterday, in terms of percentage of, I guess, balls in play that were considered weak contact, that was at 0%. So everything that he gave up in terms of hits or even balls in play were medium contact or hard contact. So just to show the ineffectiveness of yesterday as a whole, I think it probably went as bad as, or I don't think it could have gone any worse. I don't think it could have. I mean, obviously he could have given up more runs, but either way, it just was not a good debut for him either. And even over the course of the last week with this rotation, I know Hyun Ryu is getting back now. He wasn't even that sharp in Oakland. I know he was just getting back, but I think near the end of his start, I think he kind of settled in a bit. But obviously we're not too concerned with Ryu. I think it was more of him just coming off the IL, and then of course Robbie Ray, I guess, remains the pitcher that has been maintaining good performances, and he's going to be one of the starters in this upcoming 3-game set with Atlanta. And then Ross Stripling as well. He continues to struggle. I don't know what you guys think about that one. I know we discussed earlier about how he's been throwing well, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. It just nothing seems to be going his way as well with Steven Matz. He had a little bit of a unlucky start as well in Houston. I thought he looked a little bit better, but near the end of his start, I think things began to unravel just a bit. But he was definitely better than what we saw in Oakland or even the start beforehand. But this rotation as a whole, definitely, we discussed this with the injuries just now. All of these guys need to start pitching better, and they need to start going deeper into games. And that includes Nate Pearson not walking 5 people in 2.1 innings. That's got to stop. Nate Pearson, I think, will be fine. Obviously, he's going to get better from this. And for people saying he shouldn't be starting anymore, that's a joke, because he will be starting at least 2 or 3 more times, I think. Like he's definitely earned himself another few starts. And he was one of these guys that was penciled in going back to February as a starter on this team. So he is here to stay, I think, barring any more injuries, but he is one of these guys that will be staying. And now the concern is, well, step one, the rotation is somewhat healthy, back to 5 men. Step 2 is now pitching more effectively and deeper into ball games for this team. And we got to see that from all of them. Robbie Ray's the only one, and Hyun Ryu, that have been proving that so far. With Steven Matz, I guess early on he did as well, but for the other 3 guys, and Matz, Stripling, and Pearson, they got to get better, and there's no other debate for that.
Do you guys think that Ross Stripling stays in the rotation? Because this is something that I thought about. He initially was not actually meant to be in the starting rotation. He only came in because of injuries. So he this season he's pitched 16 and a third innings, as you said, Bryson. He's not been good. A 6.61 ERA. Now with 4 of the 5 people that the Blue Jays had in the rotation or plan to have in the rotation, I almost think maybe they're just going to go to a 4-man rotation and then a bullpen day every 5 days. They can throw. The way I see it is you can kind of throw Stripling, Anthony Kay, and maybe Trent Thornton in as your bulk inning opener type guys. I'm not sure. Personally, I think I would prefer to have a 5-man rotation, but I don't know if you can have Ross Stripling in right now, just considering, he has been struggling heavily, and the Blue Jays, I don't know if they can really afford to, have, like I said, the 5 guys in the rotation, but guys that are not throwing, the quantity and quality of innings that they really need right now.
Yeah, I don't think he stays in the rotation. I like think about how much of a bonus it would be for the Blue Jays to have him in the bullpen, because like right now I think one of their key problems with the bullpen is that they don't really have long guys. They don't have guys who are built to go 2, 3, 4 innings, which is strange because coming out of the bullpen they do have guys like Anthony Kay. They do have some guys who have in the past been more starters, like Tommy Malone, of course, before he got injured. But right now, they just don't have someone to fill that role. I think if you send Ross Stripling to the bullpen, he can fill that role perfectly. He can eat 2, 3, 4 innings when the Blue Jays need it, especially because he's stretched out right now. It would help the Blue Jays a lot to get him out of the rotation. It's just a matter of, do they have anyone to fill a spot in the rotation? And that's the problem. I do disagree with the assertion that he hasn't been good in the rotation. Like, his numbers aren't great. I mean, he gave up 3 runs in his last start over 3.2 innings, 2 runs in a 4.1 inning start on May 2nd, which was his best start. He does have a 6.61 ERA, but I don't know what we expect out of Ross Stripling. Like, to me, he's not a starter. He shouldn't be a starter. He's not someone who's good enough to be a starter. And he's kind of been thrown into this role. Yes, he's been worked into it. He was stretched out in spring training, but he has largely been thrown into this role. If everything went as planned, he never would have been a starter for the Blue Jays. So to me, what he's doing in kind of a stopgap role, filling the void for the Blue Jays, it's acceptable. I don't know what more we expect of him. going 3.2 innings, giving up 3 runs, I think that's good enough. I think the offense and the bullpen should be able to bail you out in that situation.
Yeah, I understand the expectations for Stripling should be lower. And I agree. I think he's a better reliever. And even going back to someone, his career ERA is below 4, which is solid. It's a 3.88 ERA. And obviously, either way, what he's done so far, I don't know if it's been enough, but as much as he has been unlucky though at times, his fielder's independent pitching is at 440. So that also proves that he's been a tad unlucky. And I think that's pretty obvious. But either way, him staying long term in the rotation definitely out of the question. I completely agree with you guys. And even when you look at the long men right now in this bullpen, you have Anthony Kay, who just recently moved there, and then you have who else do you have? You have one more guy. I believe it was Trent Thornton. That's who it was. And then even when you want to look at AAA Buffalo's rotation, the only guys right now I think that could be considered, like for the time being right now, would be TJ Zoik, who has already started a few times this year. And there's also someone like Jacob Wagasback. So depending on how they perform, I know there is a top prospect right now who dominated his first outing, but I think it's a little too early. But I'm just saying, if this continues with injuries, we already discussed this, never say never. But right now, on this date on May 10th, TJ Zoik, Wagasback, those are two other guys I guess you can consider. Trent Thornton, of course. But yeah, it's just Ross Stripling. I don't know how much more he starts, but he's definitely better than what we've seen so far. And I think that's why fans are a bit frustrated. I'm not saying we're expecting him to go 6 scoreless or 7 scoreless every outing, but definitely a tad better. And I know he's been unlucky, but either way, it's just been, I guess, a little disappointing from him. But obviously, we do have to remember that he wasn't supposed to be penciled in this rotation, like Jacob, you mentioned. He wasn't. So him and the long men in the bullpen would definitely be good. And I've always liked Ross Stripling better as a reliever anyway, even going back to his days with the Dodgers, because we've seen a lot of him because of the success the Dodgers have had in terms of the playoffs and everything. So a lot, everyone's familiar with who Ross Stripling is. And even last year when he came out of the bullpen with the Jays after they acquired him, it seems that he's more comfortable coming out of the bullpen for sure. But there's so many other, or not so many, but there's definitely a few other options the Jays can revert to. But of course, either way, all these guys need to step up a little bit more. And I'm sure Stripling will definitely be a tad better. I mean, he has to, based on the current circumstances of this team.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm when I said Ross Stripling's numbers, that is, I wasn't too concerned about it because, as we've just mentioned, he wasn't supposed to be a starter. He was supposed to be a reliever, and I think that's where he is playing to be. I think he's under team control this season and next season, so Blue Jays can, they can take him into consideration at least for next year as well. So with Stripling, that's why I was kind of looking through this question and seeing, what's the best option for the Blue Jays, because 4 of the guys that they were expecting to be in the rotation are now here. The guy that was not intending to be in the rotation, what do they do with him? I said I want them to have a stereotypical 5-man rotation, but I don't know if that 5th starter is Ross Stripling. It has to be a righty, in my opinion. I don't know if they can go with 4 lefties, but I wouldn't say that I'm too concerned with Ross Stripling, just considering the context and how he wasn't actually supposed to be a starter. He's a good bullpen guy, and as we said, you want 2-3 innings out of him. That's a lot better than saying, Tim Mesa throw 2 innings. He's not a 2-inning guy. None of these guys that they've had doing that are supposed to be doing that. They're supposed to be late inning, or at least maybe 1 inning, 1 and a third, 1 and 2/3 max inning guys, and Stripling could help that. And I think that's the key with the Nate Pearson coming back news, is even though he wasn't very good in his first start, there's a lot of ramifications here where now you don't have to cover 3 of the 5 days that are 3 of the 5 games that you're playing with a starting pitcher injured. You take your bullpen, put him in there. So now they have at least more options. It's unfortunate that they're still losing options, but at least now they have a guy that can start, and that's 3-4 innings that you now don't have to cover. So at least with Stripling, the Blue Jays now have the option to be a little bit more flexible. And when their guys come back, hopefully we see guys like Julian Merriweather. Hope we're expecting to see Dolis and Phelps and all them back at some point throughout the season. I think the bullpen will be lethal once they finally, and I say finally very cautiously, finally get all these guys back, because it can be good. And I don't think that we're very concerned about the potential of the bullpen. We're just concerned about who's actually in the bullpen, and the amount of players that keep leaving because of injuries. That's, I think, what's really holding them back right now.
Well, what's been like remarkable is that they have been pretty lethal, even despite these injuries. They're one of the best bullpens in baseball, which is bonkers. Like I don't know how the Blue Jays are doing it with all these injuries, with just the incredible amount of work that they've been put up to by Charlie Montoyo, by the starting rotation. Somehow they've weathered the storm, and so far they're doing well. I think we're going to see that fall apart eventually, but
Yeah,
so far so good. So it's remarkable that they've lasted this long. I do want to talk about the bullpen management because there have been
here
some
we go.
instances where people have been upset about bringing guys in where they shouldn't be brought in. I know there's been issues with guys, shaking off rust. Like Jordan Romano, you had to put him in a few blowout situations so that he got some work in because he came back from the injury list. He was a bit rusty, a bit rough. But you are seeing the Blue Jays put high leverage guys who have been really good this season, like I don't know, Ryan Barucki, into situations that aren't high leverage, that you shouldn't be using those guys in. In my opinion, you should be saving some of these guys for instances where the games are closer instead of using them up on games where, there's a 3, 4, 5 run differential. So I've disagreed with some of the bullpen decisions so far, and I think it's cost the Blue Jays. I'd much rather see them use a guy like Joel Payamps in a 4-run game instead of Tim Meza or Ryan Barucki in a 4-run game. It hasn't been the worst. Their Blue Jays are making do with what they have, but I have been frustrated a little bit with the decisions they've been making just because I know it's going to have ramifications down the line.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that. The only thing that I think we also need to remember is there is only so many guys that the Blue Jays have available, and a lot of the guys that they do have right now are those one inning high leverage type guys. And say you use Joel Payamps and he goes 2, 3 innings, I would consider him unavailable for the next game at least. And I think that's where the Blue Jays are. In an ideal world, like you said, that's probably how the bullpen will be managed. I don't think Charlie Montoyo is incapable of managing. I just think his hands are pretty much tied right now. There's pretty much, I mean, he has a lot of good options, but those options are maybe good for other situations, not what the Blue Jays are in right now. They're playing not many close games. A lot of the games on the road trip so far have been, 10-4, 7-4. Or that's sort of close, but it's not a 1 or 2 run game. So Charlie and his staff I think are definitely they're just trying to work with what they got. Um, in an ideal world, you are able to better manage the bullpen just because the guys that are in the bullpen that are kind of equipped for the different situations are there. But right now, it's running on empty right now. I think that's the biggest problem is the guys that are there, they're good and they've had a good bullpen all season. It's just there's only so many times that so you can put Payamps in a 3, 4 run game and then he's not available for the next one. And even with Dolis, I wanted to touch on that. A lot of people said, why was Dolis pitching in a game that wasn't a safe situation? And you got to remember that Dolis needs to get work in eventually. And we saw this a couple of years ago with previous closers where the Blue Jays were not winning, not in closing situations, and they either saw reduced workload or they were working in non-safe situations. And that I don't think that Dolis going in that game was a mistake. Obviously, in hindsight, you can say, well, he got injured, but hindsight's 2020. So there's only so much criticism we can give there. But yeah, there's with the way the bullpen's been managed, I think there's only so much that can be done right now until there's guys that come back. Unless you want to bring some guys up and like you said with Wagas back, TJ Zoik, then you can you can better manage it and have guys that are more equipped for certain situations go into those situations.
Yeah, I mean, with the bullpen, it's just in terms of the management, I don't know. It's just going back to what I said. I think it's just been an overall headache in terms of everything, and that's why I'm going to cut Charlie Montoyo some slack. I understand some of it has been a little bit questionable, but you know, and Jacob, you were mentioning, I don't know, I don't think they've run out of gas yet, but I do think we're getting close. Like at this rate, I give it till the end of the month for sure. A lot of these guys are doing well. I mean, they are. I mean, Ryan Barucki's been doing fine. I know his ERA is a little bit inflated from one bad inning a couple weeks ago, but other guys like Tyler Chatwood, David Phelps at the time, unfortunately, he is no longer an option for the time being. But other guys, Jordan Romano's been figuring it out, and a lot of these guys, either way, I don't know what it is because I don't know the mindset they have. I don't know if they're kind of caught off guard in terms of starters not going deep into games. I'm not sure what they are thinking or planning. All I know is it must be a massive headache or a complete chaos in terms of what they have going on. So definitely some things I have highlighted that are or have been, I guess, disappointing or not disappointing in terms maybe just me being why is this guy in and not that guy. But in terms of this, if this continues to go on, if the Jays ever slowly get healthy, I think I'm going to look into it a little bit more. But right now, I'm at this point, I'm just praying that they can somewhat get healthy, and that's why I kind of can understand or feel bad for the management, or I guess whatever the heck Charlie Montoyo and Pete Walker are trying to, or how they're trying to get by at this point.
Yeah, definitely a nitpicking area for sure, given all the problems with the Blue Jays this week, but just something that I've picked up on. I know a few people on Twitter and Instagram have also been upset with. Okay, we've talked about the pitching woes. I think now it's time to turn to Alek Manoah watch. We're going to be talking about him, I feel like, every episode until he comes up to the majors. It's just inevitable. So I guess we're starting this new, I guess you can call it a segment, but Alek Manoah watch. So we'll be looking at his starts in AAA or wherever he ends up this season, and keeping track of how far away we think he is from the majors, what his ETA is. And of course, that'll depend on how things are going on the majors as well. But let's look at his start this week in AAA for the Trenton Thunder slash Bison. He pitched 6 innings, only gave up 2 hits, both of them singles, no runs, no walks, and 12 strikeouts. That's the number that so many people latched onto. 12 strikeouts. It's pretty remarkable for a guy who has never pitched above low A to all of a sudden jump to AAA, strike out 12 in his AAA debut, and catch a lot of eyes, catch a lot of attention, and have people saying, when is this guy going to get to the majors? So the question to you, we talked about it last week. When is he going to get to the majors? I'm putting the date for me updated now that we've seen him at AAA. I'm going to put it at August 1st. August 1st is the date that I'm setting for Alek Manoah's major league debut. As we return to this topic over episodes, we can adjust depending on his performance, depending on how things are going in the majors. But August 1st is where I'm setting it for me. First, what do you guys think for when he's going to come up and make his major league debut?
See, I'm gonna give him a minimum of 3 more starts in the minors because, like, here, okay, when I say minimum, I expect more, but I'm saying at least 3 more starts. So maybe it's May I think the 11th today. So at the earliest, mid-June. I don't think that that's realistic. You know what?
Wow.
I'm gonna put it at first of all, I should mention I'm the one that said there's a 0% chance, and here I am
Yeah.
retracting that. But I'm gonna say July 15th he comes up because as I said, he needs more time to work things out. And we talk about Nate Pearson, how maybe he should have gotten an extra start to really work things out. I don't think the Blue Jays want to rush Alek Manoah. I think they have him in their plans for the future. So I'm going to say they give him a minimum of 3 more starts, most likely 4, something like that. But mid-July, we're going to see Alek Manoah come up. And I think he will be a key contributor, at least maybe as an opener, maybe as a starter, but he's going to be used in some relatively high leverage situations. And I say that cautiously because I really don't want the Blue Jays to rush him this season. But like I said, a couple more months and he's up.
Just to clarify, the date we're setting, just so we know for future use, for future bragging rights, are we setting the date that he makes his debut or the day the Blue Jays add him to the roster?
I say Adam because debut, it
Okay.
could depend.
Yeah. Okay. So the day the Blue Jays add him to the roster, I say August 1st. You say July 15th. Bryson, where are you at?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say overall, the percentage, I gave a 35% chance last week that he's up this year. I'm going to raise it. I'm going to go at 40% now. I think each week it's going to slowly rise. But I mean, July 15th was actually a date that I was going to circle. But since Jacob did it, I'm going to be a little bit more creative and I will. All right, this is where it gets tough. I'm probably going to go in the middle between you two. I'm going to say July 20th. I think there is a chance. I mean, but under the circumstance, which I can't predict, unfortunately, but I mean, I feel like it's more of a safer bet. If the injuries continue to be at this rate, I think it'll be way before. I think it could be early July, late June, but I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and expect that this team is going to heal more than they get injured, which is why I will say July 20th. So I'm being optimistic. Right now, I think it's safer to say that he'd be up beforehand, but I mean, if he's pitching like he did, I know it's one start and I know he'll get more. And I think, in terms of minimum starts, I think I'll try to be a little bit more precise. I think it's a minimum more of, I'd say 7 to 10 starts. Like I give it a couple more months. I think, I think it's a lot more than just a minimum of 3, but either way, he was very dominant. And if it continues like it did there, it's going to be very hard for them to keep him in the minor leagues. I mean, he's already skipped. We've already discussed the levels he skipped. So I think the Jays have kind of come to the conclusion that there's a chance that this happens. And when it does happen, or if it does happen in this year, there's no reason for them to hold him back. There's no reason, because they get the extra year of control. They passed the date or whatever it was in early April. We've already passed that date. So the only, I guess, other move would be adding him to the 40-man roster, which is a little bit easier than it sounds, which is fine. In what I'm saying, there's not many hurdles left in terms of if he keeps performing like he is now, barring any injuries. I'll say July 20th, and I do think he'll be up this season now.
Okay, so we've laid down the mile markers. We'll see how it changes over time, but yeah, remarkable start in AAA. 5 ground ball outs, 2 fly ball outs, and 12 strikeouts, 19 batters faced total. Just insane. 19 batters and 2 fly balls. I think that's probably the most encouraging thing, just the fact that he's not going to give up home runs. I don't know what his home run statistics are in the past, but 2 fly balls for 19 batters faced, I'm getting really excited now. I think all fans are getting really excited, but it should be a very exciting few weeks and months to keep track of what Manoah is doing in AAA.
Is it too early for the Simeon Wood Richardson watch, or?
I think that's too early. He's in Double A, so
No, I
we'll
know.
give it time. I'm going to see
Whoa.
I'm going to see the Fisher Cats on Wednesday because I live in New Hampshire. So Fisher Cats on Wednesday. I was hoping it would be Simeon Woods Richardson starting. Unfortunately, it's Elvis Luciano, who we're all familiar with, 2019 Rule 5 draft pick. But I was hoping it was Woods Richardson. But anyways,
I want videos of you at the park.
I want to see Austin
I'll be
Martin
posting
too.
some.
Austin Martin, hello. Yeah, that'll be very
Yes.
fun.
I hope so. He had an off day, I think, yesterday or today, so hopefully he's good to go for Wednesday. And
Yeah, he'll be
he's
back.
someone, maybe if we're doing more of a minor league look at how prospects are doing, he's someone who's also doing very well. He had a leadoff hit in his first professional at bat for Double A, and then he's been doing fairly well since then. Don't know the exact stats, but he's someone also to keep track of in terms of development. I don't expect him to make the major league team this season, but I think he could get a call up to AAA maybe August or September, and then debut next season. I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation for another day. But
I said that a couple
I
weeks
think
ago
that's
with
safe.
Simeon being gone. I think he's coming up next season.
All I want to say is I'm so happy the minor leagues are back. It's good for us, or good for them to actually start playing again as well, and it gives us the opportunity to do these segments rather than just reporting them at the alternate site playing against each other. This is meaningful games, legit stats, and I'm just it's pretty exciting, and I guess kind of like a sigh of relief that the minor leagues are officially back. So I just wanted to mention that. So
yeah,
Hopefully
lots of
Martin
fun.
wears 55 though, so then all these people with the Russ Martin jerseys don't have to buy a new one.
All right. Well, we will leave it there. We'll check back in on how Manoah does over the next few months, but should be fun to watch. Thank you to everyone who listened to or watched this episode again. I'm going to say this every week. You can watch this episode. It's on YouTube, Section 138. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Section 138 Pod. We do live streams. You can stay up to date with our episodes and get some highlights there. You can rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcast, which just helps spread the word about what we're doing. And then lastly, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/section138pod. Get exclusive access to our Discord, to choosing music before the podcast, tons of exciting benefits there. All right. Thank you to everyone who listened, and we'll catch you next week.